Hi friends, it's Heather with Running with Scissors, and today we are going to do the tutorial for your June 2023 box. It's box number 32, and it is the fabric ring flowers, right? Patriotic themed fabric ring flowers. All right, so for our pickup and our local delivery folks, you got yours in a bag like this. And if you are one who gets it shipped, it came in a rather large box. All right, so you saw in the opening what we're making, but let's get started and see what's inside the bag this time around. All right, so right off the get-go, you'll see that you have 3 wooden dowels, and there's a heavy jar in here. We'll explore that in a minute, but let's take everything else out of here. All right, I'm gonna set my bag to the side. You have a set of 3 rings and lids, a piece of jute. You have a mason jar. Inside that mason jar, you will have some paint, a foam brush, a glue stick, 3 different pieces of fabric, and a piece of burlap. Now, your fabric may not be the same fabric that I have here. There are 3 different ones in there. They are pre-cut to the width that we want, and the length is enough to get 25 to 30 strips out of. All right, so your fabric may not match mine. It actually, everybody might get a little bit different. So you also have a bag of stuffing. All right, and then of course we have instructions. And of course, no picture up there yet because we're doing the sample right now. And then you also have some patterns, and they do vary, and we'll talk about that when we get to that spot down the road here. But for now, let's get started on the mason jar. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint our mason jar. We're going to paint it with the foam brush, and you may need to put a couple of coats on this. So we're going to put the first coat on, and then we're going to let that dry, and then we'll see if it needs another coat, and if it does, we'll tackle that then. All right, so we're just going to take our foam brush, and we are going to paint this mason jar. And when you are all done, let it dry completely. It should dry pretty quickly, but if you are impatient, of course, take the hairdryer to it. And if it needs a second coat, put on a second coat, and then we'll meet back here when our mason jars are completely painted. All right, see you guys in just a little bit. Okay, so we're back, and my mason jar has 2 coats on it, and you can see this is how I ended up painting it. I put my hand in it, and it just seemed to be easier to turn around like that. It is mostly dry, however, I'm going to let it sit for just a little bit longer before I do anything with it. I'm going to move on to all the other stuff that we've got to do, and we'll come back to this mason jar at the end. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to cut my fabric. I'm going to take 1 piece of my fabric and lay it out. And on the bottom of your instructions, there is a small ruler here that you can print out, or I'm sorry, that you can cut out with 1/2 inch increments on it. All right, if you need that. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to eyeball that. But of course, you can cut that out. You can lay it on your fabric, and you can just either mark with a pencil or a felt marker and cut the strips that way. Or if you are lucky enough to have a rotary cutter with a mat and plastic or acrylic ruler, you can use that. I'm just going to use scissors. So you're going to want sharp scissors for this, and of course you guys always know that we have fabric scissors and paper scissors, and we are going to use the fabric scissors. So once again, I'm just going to eyeball it, and I'm going to start my cut, and I'm going to just cut as straight as I possibly can. But you guys can, once again, if you want to mark it all out, feel free to mark it out. I'm not gonna do that. And in fact, I'm gonna make things just a little bit easier, and I'm going to fold this piece of fabric in half, and I'm gonna cut 2 strips at the same time. All right, so we're gonna continue like that until we have this entire piece of fabric completely cut. Now, if you've got a piece of fabric with the selvage end on it, just slice that off first. That will be like a white stripe at the one end. It would be the short end of the fabric, and that is it's got the color markings on it, and the manufacturer and that kind of thing. And of course you can't use that piece, so just slice that off. All right, we're going to continue to cut like this, and then once we finish this piece, we're going to continue and do the same thing with the other 2 pieces. So let's meet back here in just a few minutes when we have all 3 pieces of our fabric cut. Do not cut the burlap yet, that is something different. So just all 3 pieces of your fabric, you're going to cut into multiple 1/2-inch strips just like this. And you should get 25 to 30 strips when you are all done with your fabric. And let's come back here as soon as we have all of that cut. Okay, we're back, and I have all 3 of my fabrics cut into strips. And now we are going to start the assembly of the flowers. So we're going to take one of our rings, and we're going to take one of our fabrics at a time, and we are going to all right, so we're going to take our piece of fabric, and we are going to fold it in half and bring both ends together, but we want both right sides of the material facing up. So both like that, and we're just going to bring them together. We're going to drop the loop, or let the loop drop down through the middle of the ring, and bring it up on the other side. And then we're going to pull the 2 tails through that loop, and we're going to tighten this down snug, just like that. That is a lark's head knot, or commonly known as cow hitching, okay? And we're just gonna tighten that down. Now you are gonna continuously do this until your ring is full or all of your fabric is gone, whichever comes first. I'm pretty sure that you will probably fill your ring before you run out of fabric. All right, so just like that, 2 ends together. Drop the loop down through the middle of the ring, bring it up around, and tuck those 2 ends into the loop and tighten it down snug. Make your way all the way around the ring, and you're going to repeat that for each fabric and each ring. 3 fabrics, 3 rings, okay? Now, once you start getting a whole lot of pieces of fabric on these rings, it will get a little bit more difficult to set the next ring or next loop on there. You can slide these together as tight as you need to get all that fabric on, and then once you get it on, you can loosen it up. All right, let's get all 3 of those rings done, and we'll be back here to go on to the next step. Okay, so all of my rings are wrapped in my fabric, and now if you want to, if your fabric is a little long, you can take and you can just trim it all the way around and shorten the strands up a bit. Just snip all the way around. It's gonna be shaggy, so you're not really going to be able to see if you don't have them all lined up perfectly, so don't worry about that. Just snip them. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is take care of our burlap and our rings. And what you wanna figure out right now is whether or not you want the burlap center to sit on top of the flower or at the back side and push up through the center. So do you want it to push up through the center here and kind of be like a bubble here, or do you want it to cover the edges of where you did your lark's head knot and go from there. Now, if you look at the picture on the instructions, we do the kind that sit on the top, okay? So I'm going to show you how to do it that way, but however, I'm going to talk you through very quickly how you would do it the other way. If you want to do it the other way, you're going to want to cut out your 2 back burlap and back cardboard templates, okay? So I just cut out the back cardboard for a second. What you're going to do is take a couple of pieces of scrap cardboard, trace this pattern on, and cut it out. That will take the place, the cardboard pieces will take the place of your metal lids, because these will not fit through the back now, okay? So you can no longer use these if you want to push the centers through the back. So instead, you're going to cut pieces out of cardboard. And then you'll go and you'll follow the tutorial the same from once you get that done, okay? So the steps are the same once you get your cardboard pieces to replace your metal discs. All right, so if you're using the cardboard template, you want to cut out the back burlap circle. If you're using the metal rings, you're gonna cut out the top circle, okay? And then you're gonna take your burlap and you're just going to loosely place this circle on the top, and you're gonna trim the burlap around it. Don't worry about getting super close to it. You don't need to worry about all that detail too much. Just cut around the outside of the circle. You just want it to be at least as big as the circle, but not any smaller, okay? At least as big as the circle, just not any smaller. And burlap moves all around, so it's really hard to get that circle exact, and we don't care about it being exact anyway, okay? So I already have my 3 circles cut out, and now would be a really good time to plug your hot glue guns in. Mine are plugged in over here. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're going to take just a small tuft of the stuffing. You will not need nearly all of it. You just want a little tiny bit, and you're gonna place it on top of the lid, and then you're gonna place the lid on top of the burlap circle. You're sandwiching that stuffing between the lid and the burlap circle. You're gonna take your hot glue gun and you're gonna put a little bit of hot glue on the outside of that ring there, the lid, sorry, on the outside of that lid. And then take your popsicle stick that was included and just fold the burlap up and over the hot glue and work your way around the lid. Hot glue is really hot there, and that burlap has a whole lot of windows in it, so that's gonna come right through and burn your fingers. Make sure you use that popsicle stick or the tongue depressor, whichever it is that you got. Just don't leave it on there so long that you glue the popsicle stick down. right, we're gonna repeat that with the other lids. Right now we're going to take our fabric rings, our fabric covered rings, and a flower center. And okay, if you use the metal lid, you're sitting it on top, which means you're just going to take a bead of glue and run it around the outside edge of the wrong side, and then you'll glue it down. If you use a cardboard, you're going to flip your flower over and you're going to push a cardboard piece in. Now it should be snug enough that you don't need to glue it. However, if you cut your cardboard a little small, you can put just a little bit of glue in there and push that in, okay? So because we chose to do the outside, the sit on top ring, we are just going to add some glue around the outside. And we are going to place the lid on the ring in the middle and then just push down. And we're going to repeat that for the other two. All right, so those are finished. And now we are going to finish up the last couple of steps here. So we have our jar, and if you want to scuff your jar up a little bit, you can use a really fine grit sandpaper, or I think if you just rub it on the edge of like a a brown paper bag, or even a box, or in my case I'm just using the table cover, it's just going to rough it up on the higher points of the glass. Just like that. And you can do that again with sandpaper, or you can just leave it. You don't have to scuff it up. All right. And then next we are going to glue our flowers to our rods. And we're just going to hit this part of the ring, the high part of the ring, on two parts of the rod, okay? So I just want to put the rod so it sticks up just a tiny little bit so it's able to grab the edge of that ring. And again, so two spots. So I'm just going to put a spot of glue there, and then I'm going to come straight down and put glue there and stick my rod to it and hold it for just a second. I'm going to let that set up the rest of the way, and in the meanwhile I'm going to glue the other two. I'm going to do it the same way. I'm just going to pick one spot and go directly across from it for the other spot, and just set my rod on it. And our last one. I didn't trim this one, I probably should have. This one feels a little long to me. Glue directly across from it and slide the rod on, and then just hold it into place for a second. All right, while we're waiting for those rods to set up and that glue to dry, I'm going to take my mason jar, and you have a little length of jute, you're going to take that mason or that jute and wrap it around the neck of the mason jar, and then just tie it into a bow. And then you can trim the edges if you need to. Of course, you can't really see it sitting upright in the camera, but all right. Now, you'll see on the instructions, it says that you may want some jar filler. You can use anything that you want that has any kind of weight to it. You can use beads, you can use fiberglass, or the glass gems or beads, or rice or sand, or whatever you want. You don't have to use anything. I have some rice in the studio from Rice Pumpkins. I'm just gonna dump that in there. It's not enough, but it's a little bit, just to show you. And then you can take your flowers, pull off any glue strings that you might have on there. And then position your flowers. Now, if you don't like how high, it's really gonna be really hard to show you guys this on the camera. If you don't like how high they are sitting, you can take the end of the rod and if you just take an X-Acto knife and you can you see this okay? You can run that X-Acto knife, just make a couple of deep, like you're kind of just like scoring it. Let me try to get a little bit better space. Okay, I think you can see that a little bit better. And just run the knife around the outside edges. These are pretty soft rods that will penetrate pretty deeply, and then you, after just a couple of rolls, you'll be pretty much through it with about 1/8 of an inch to spare, and then you can just snap it off like that. Okay. And then you can adjust the height of your flowers in your jar. Okay, there we go. And there are my and there are my flowers in my jar, which terrible video. Sorry that you can't really see it like that, but you will see it in the picture, of course, in the beginning. And I think that I might try and find some like moss or Celsius or something and just shove it right here on top of there. I think that will look cute. All right, well, I hope this was a fun and a little bit different of a project for you. And if you have any questions, be sure to give us a jingle. You can message us on Facebook or send a text or send us an email. Thanks, guys.